Hello, and welcome to Self-Care is Sexy. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host. We're a weekly podcast that's here to generate and share self-care ideas with each other. Last week, we talked about the differences between self-care and being selfish. And I really think the biggest difference is intention. Like, what are you intending to do? Are you setting out to do self-care, or are you using self-care as an excuse? Because, we're trained to think that taking care of ourselves is being overindulgent or selfish, like especially as women. We're just taught to believe that we have got to give to others first. And that's exactly what determines our worth. So if that sounds like something that you can connect with, you should definitely check out last week's episode. It's episode 128. You can find me on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbean, PodNation, and many more, as well as on our website at www.selfcareissexy.com. As is completely on par for 2020, my plans for this week's show are once again shot to shit. It is September 11th, 2020 in Portland, Oregon, and the entire state of Oregon is currently experiencing extreme wildfires, including the merging of two of the largest wildfires, the Beachy and the Riverside Fire, into what they're now calling a mega fire, creating extremely hazardous breathing conditions and much more. So today's show is an emergency self-care guide to wildfire season. So today is Friday, September 11th, 2020, and in this edition of As the World Burns, I'm giving you some low-down dirty tricks on how to deal with all of this and take care of yourself at the same time. You may notice that my sparkling radio voice is not as on point as ever. We've spent the last 3 days in pretty thick, smoky conditions, and the house that I'm currently renting isn't as secure in the windows and doors situation as one would hope, and we certainly don't have any central air. But in the recording booth, it is pretty good down here. We are pretty isolated in here, so at least it doesn't smell like campfire, so there's that. If you're new to the show, welcome to Self-Care is Sexy. My name is Chris. I'll be your host. This show's been going on for about 3 years total now. The first year was just sort of development and sort of getting it started, and we've really been recording over the last 2 years. We have currently 129 episodes for your listening pleasure, with tons of exciting interviews with all different types of people you would never expect, who talk about their self-care journeys and share with you their tips and tricks on how they're taking care of themselves. And so if you're looking for a more introduction to the show or more tips and tricks, there's several episodes, including our 100th episode that has a complete list to all the wacky self-care ideas I could think of for our 100th show. But today's show is a little bit more specific and particular. This is going to be a guide to emergency wildfire preparedness, readiness, self-care, and some tips that might help you in this situation if you're in the area. If you're not in wildfire danger right now, great for you. Please do listen to this episode because you are going to learn a lot of great insights, not just about how to deal with this particular emergency, but some tricks and hacks on how to get through really any unplanned emergencies that might come your way. And again, it's 2020, so who the fuck knows what's next, right, kids? All right, so to give you a little perspective, I myself grew up in wildfire country. I am from Spokane, Washington, which is eastern Washington, not Seattle. And it's close to the Canadian border. It's a dry, deserty, high desert sort of climate and terrain. And we were very used to wildfires growing up, so not anything new. And as a matter of fact, I lived through what was called the infamous 1996 firestorm. And firestorm was just this perfect storm of what's happening here in Oregon, of high winds, high heat, dry conditions, and some idiot with fire. And really, this is my plea to you, because if you've never been through wildfires, if you've never experienced them, the way that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. They are truly horrific. No matter how far away you are from them, you cannot escape the smell of burning pine and the thick coat of soot. It's devastating, and especially for those who are dealing with property damage, loss, and potential loss of life. Our hearts go out to them. There are plenty of foundations being set up. I'm particularly personally touched by these wildfires, as one of my close friends' farm is completely gone. The sanctuary that I often do most of my self-care at, Brighton Bush, is gone. And I was just there a few weeks ago. So again, this reminder, even if you're not in wildfire danger and you're not in any kind of evacuation situation, do make sure you are grateful for the self-care resources you have and that you can put in place. So if you've got a special place that you like to go to check out, that's a sanctuary to you, make sure that you really appreciate those places and you make them a priority to go, because one day you may wake up and they could be gone like that. So I had been through the firestorm in 96. There was an incredible wildfire in 2010 in eastern Washington that burned most of the Pendleton, Hermiston area. That was just devastating. And of course, just a few years ago, a teenager decided to burn down Angel's Crest in the gorge with a massive fire that just was sprawling damage. You can still see the fire damage driving down the Columbia River Gorge today. So it's just, today's show is really about those of us who are experiencing this right now, and maybe who are local, or, you folks up north, my folks in Seattle, Canada, you're about to get what we are putting your way because the winds are about to shift. So real quick today, again, it's just kind of an emergency triage show. I'm going to give you 5 tips about wildfire danger that you might not know. So the number one tip I can give you is to stay inside. Staying inside is imperative, and I mean don't even let the dogs out to go pee if you can avoid it. Use piddle pads if you have to. And if you need to, if you're in an older house like I am, get old shirts or towels, wet them, wring them out, so they're not like sopping wet, but put them in front of your door drafts and windows, and make sure to secure your curtains as well, and really just sort of hunker down the best that you can. If you're not super bougie and you don't have the air filters or the central air system to filter the air in your home, which make sure those are all set to recirculate. That's a big deal. You don't want it blowing in air from outside. But if you are not that super bougie, you can create homemade filtration systems. You can use box fans and filters. Your furnace should have an extra couple laying around. If not, the hardware store's open. If you do go outside, wear an N95 mask. You cannot see what's happening to you right now in these conditions, but it is damaging your lungs in ways that potentially cannot be repaired. So please, 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 self-care is sexy. Take care of yourself. The other suggestion, tip number 2 about wildfire danger, if you can go. So I know in the Portland metro area, they're telling us, there's these 3 stages, the red, yellow, green. Green is you're supposed to be thinking about it and ready. Yellow is got to be ready on a moment's notice, and red is get out. So they've got the city set up in the various colors. But my offering to you as somebody who has been through massive wildfires in my life, if you can go, because you're one less person on the road for those that need to get out. If there's an extreme emergency, the freeways are going to be jam-packed. If you live in the Portland metro area, there are 2 ways out of this city, and one of those 2 ways is currently blocked by fire. So, technically there's 3 if you think I-5 south and north is 2 separate things, but really it's either I-5, 84, sometimes 205, but it just merges with I-5. So anyway, there's not many routes out of the city, so if you can go. Listen to the authorities, but, just be smart about it. And number 3, and this one is extremely important right now, make sure that your homeowners or renters insurance information is updated. And FYI, I'm going to go off on a little rant here, my friends, and you can fast forward me if this is not your jam, but I'm a little pissed off to find out that in certain zip codes in the Portland area, you cannot get renter's insurance right now, or you can't up your policy because of the wildfire danger and the smoke danger. And again, smoke does just as much danger as wildfire does to properties, in the sense that, you know, your place doesn't have to burn to the ground for there to be damage from this. So I don't know about you, but there's a thick layer of soot on my cars. The house is filthy. Everything's covered in smoke and dust. So, you know, there can be smoke damage to your property. And so if you're able to call your insurance companies, up that coverage, make sure that smoke damage, fire damage is covered. When I called, I was not allowed to up my policy. I was told I cannot make changes based on my zip code. And I'm here in the city, so that was a little concerning. You know, what's the point of having insurance if you can't protect yourself? But I digress. All right. Another tip about wildfire, and number 4, I'm not trying to alarm anyone, but I just want you to learn from my personal experience. Number 4, the power outages. If your power goes out, it's not a good sign. One of two things is happening. Either a generator that you're connected to has blown due to heat or fire damage, or the power company is preemptively shutting off power because fire is coming this way. Now, I've seen on Facebook a lot of comments and things today about how, oh, there's so much concrete between me and these wildfires, it'll never get to me. Let me tell you from my own experience, the city actually burns quicker than the forest, because the forest was meant to burn. Those trees are designed to burn, i.e. their core is full of sap, and so they're soaked on the inside, and their thick bark is like a shell to protect them from the heat. Our houses and our modern day conveniences are all made of extremely flammable material, and cities go up so quickly. I have watched fire jump across the street. I've watched it burn house after house after house so rapidly, and all of our fire services are being routed to help and support the wildfires. So if it catches in the city, the resources here are depleted already, and it's going to be a challenge. And again, the way our city is set up, it's not really conducive for getting out quickly. So you've got those factors that you just want to be thinking about. So if you get a power outage and you're able to get out of the city, wherever you're at, hit the road, Jack, because that's not a good sign. 5, my last tip about wildfire danger is the raining ash. The second you can see particles in the air, leave wherever you are. I don't care what the authorities say. I know that's contradictory to my first point, which is listen to the authorities, but I'm telling you from experience, sometimes they don't have the ability to alert you in time, because fire moves so much quicker. It can move faster than a car. It can jump further than you can ever imagine. It can hop streets. It can jump water. I've seen fire do some incredible things, especially a fast-moving hot fire. So please, 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 if you see some particles falling from the sky, get out now. Go, leave. Don't wait for them to tell you it's safe. If stuff is falling from the sky, it's not a good thing. And to that point, those of us in the metro area, don't wash your car for a couple of days. Like, the inclination is once the smoke lifts, we're all going to want to, clean up the dust and the soot and stuff. Don't do that. Don't get it wet. This kind of dust and particles creates like a mud, and it will ruin your car. The best thing you can do is, 1, either take your car to a professional car wash that can drain all that stuff out and scrub it off really, really good. Or 2, wait until you can, blow it off and it's dry enough to blow off before you sudsy it up and create concrete like a substance out of the ash. Before I move on to the self-care tips of today's show, I really do want to talk about separately. Let's not underestimate the anxiety level right now. There is a lot of uncertainty just based on what's happening in the world right now. But you add on top of that this extreme fire hazard and hazardous breathing conditions that we've never seen before. you're compounding the anxiety of uncertainty. And so as a reminder,